All right, good evening, and welcome to Brainstorms, Turning the Page, your weekly dose of comic, gaming, and pop culture, whatever the heck else we want to talk about, kind of debate and commentary. We're going to follow the format of one of John and Chandler's favorite shows somewhat. We're going to deviate a little bit. We're going to give you guys a little bit of extra time. Going to shoot through some couple of topics, let you guys kind of duke it out. Hopefully we'll get the last word and turn the page on the topic. I'm Jason, your host, probably sometimes commentator, oftentimes agitator. I'm joined by...
I'm John, co-owner of Brainstorm Comics and Gaming.
Chandler, employee and longtime subscriber.
And though you can't see him, my sidekick behind the camera and famous star of our D&D videos, Jake. I'm sure he was either our peanut gallery for tonight. All right, so we've talked about a couple of these topics first, and we're going to jump right into our first topic. And I'm going to give you 3 minutes each to kind of back and forth on the topic. Get your point across, and then we will skip to the next and do the same. And at the end, I have a mystery topic for you guys, and we'll bump that up to 5 minutes. That sounds good. So she's been around now for a little while. There's been debate back and forth in the DC universe. Good, bad, and different. Is Punchline just a cheap Harley knockoff, or is she offering something new? Is she here to stay? Flash in the pan. And let me pull up our timer, and let's go.
Well, I will say that Harley Quinn.
Wrong.
I will say that Harley Quinn has built up definitely a bank of goodwill over the last 25 years at this point, 28 years. And I understand why people initially thought that this character was kind of like a Harley Quinn knockoff. Everybody thought she was going to be a Joker's girlfriend. I know your favorite thing to say is but she's not. I think that she's definitely defined herself in a different type of role than Harley Quinn did. Harley was broken by the Joker, whereas it seems like Punchline already had her ideals, and she went with Joker because he kind of aligned with what she already kind of felt. You and I have talked about this also. I think that if it's done properly, like the long-term goal with the character, then it can definitely explore the radicalization of young adults in America towards extreme views.
I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't love when creators force a new character down your throat and are like, trust me, this is just as good as this, when it's like, first of all, why should I trust you? Because I know what this is. I've had this for 25, 28 years now. Really like Harley. She's had a lot of ups and downs. A lot of different creators have had their hands working with her, from her creators with Paul Dini and Bruce Timm on the animated series, to getting her own series, to now she's a staple in the Suicide Squad, has her own run all the time. She's very much beloved by the DC community. To tell me that Punchline is just as good right away, I'm like, I feel like you need to cut your teeth a little bit before I can put you in that class.
I do feel like they overhyped her a lot initially.
Yeah, I think Tinian did a lot with that, and I get it. You have a big run, you have Batman 100, a lot of big things coming out. Obviously, you want to hype. I do like you said, the steps they have taken to intentionally deviate from Harley, which I think is a good idea. I don't think it's good.
You think that's been part of the point? You think Harley's gotten so big with the animated series and all this stuff, and really gained, I'd say, mainstream popularity in the last couple of years? Do you think they felt like they couldn't experiment with her anymore? So kind of in the typical, I'm going to put a replacement in, right? Is that when Punchline comes in and so they can kind of explore different concepts?
Because they've definitely, Harley at this point right now, at worst, she's an anti-hero. She's definitely not a villain anymore. She's not a sidekick. She's her own thing. But typically, especially as we saw during Joker War, spoiler alert, but you've had a long time now, she is on the Batman side. She is on the whole Bat family, helping them with everything. So I think with Punchline, it's definitely cementing that in, but also kind of saying hey, she might not get a redemptive arc, and she might not need to. It's intentional. It's crucial to the character that she has her own intentions and everything going on. And they're not good, and she's not Harley. She's not maybe going to have that swan song to come back to the other side.
But going back to the core question again, I also think it's unfair that the readers initially said, "Oh, she's female and she's hanging out with Joker, so she must be the same."
Well, you wear clown paint. It's hard.
But nobody does that with Robin. Nobody goes, "Oh, Jason Todd's the same as Nightwing, the same as."
Well, he's not the same.
That is a topic for another time. Your 3 minute clock has run out. I think we're gonna have to turn the page on this one. Next, I think this one's gonna hurt you a little bit, since you are a favorite. I know you're a huge DC reader. It's been a few weeks since the news came out. There's all kind of rumors going on right now. We've seen mass layoffs, C-level executives leaving, A-level executives leaving. We've seen folks take their books to Image that we thought we'd probably go to publish at DC. So for our next topic, what and the HE double hockey sticks is going on at DC? It seems from the outside looking in, we've got a dumpster fire on our hands.
I think that would imply that they know what's going on.
Well, the rumors seem to be sprouting from Ethan Van Sciver that as of June of next year, June of 2021, we will see the demise of DC Comics and that they will cease publishing altogether. As of right now, the only thing that we know concrete is that they're going to cut back the number of titles. It sounds like somewhere around 15 to 20. I hope there's a little bit higher than that as a retailer, just because I think that you probably need about 30 books to really be a solid.
And if you cut that far back, someone's losing, right? There's going to be B or even C list that everyone has a favorite. Like, who makes a cut? Who's going to get a regular book?
But at 15 to 20, you're probably not going to see any C list except for maybe on like a one shot and a recurring.
Yeah, 5 of the books will probably be Batman.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality.
And another 2 at least Superman and everything. So it is going for people that
Justice League and
really
other 2.
care for the smaller side characters. This might not be a great time for you because they are going to lean probably on the core 6 and mostly the Trinity for putting out books in the future.
So I know that I've tried to console you a little bit in that I think that it may not be exactly. I think Ethan Van Sciver may be right, but not right in the way that he thinks he is. I think that right now they're going through reductions and redundancies within the company, getting rid of those. I think we may see them. I think we may see AT&T fold the DC publishing into their other publishing like Random House and Penguin, and put them in the same building. Maybe sell off the real estate that they have out in California, based for DC. And let them publish it. Now I know that you had also misconstrued a little bit what I meant. You thought I meant that it was going to be strictly graphic novels, original content through that. That's not what I mean. I mean that maybe they'll use their printers, their distribution, their model as opposed to the normal comic industry. Just thinking of it from a corporate level, to me that makes more sense. Or I know one of the other things being floated is that perhaps they'll license the characters out. I don't see that happening because the content is so important for their TV shows and their movies. It's possible. I'm not going to.
I mean, it's happened in the past, right? I mean, Marvel sent books over to the Image guys at one point trying to.
So that was still published under Marvel.
I mean, it was, but you don't think they could do something simple or something similar and kind of license it out?
It's possible. I don't think the DC is in this. So Marvel made that move in the 90s because of their financial straits. And I know that AT&T is in financial straits, but not how Marvel was. Marvel was like, we're getting ready to sell this company. We just want, like, we're looking for anything to like pail the water out of the boat sort of thing. They also made a lot of bad movie deals at that point, which is why a lot of the rights to the characters were tied up. Like there were a lot of bad things going on at Marvel at that point. The guy who owned it viewed it as his own piggy bank and was taking money out of the.
The thing that I don't get, AT&T has a debt problem. I think DC is such a small portion of that. Like I feel like even shutting that down, that barely puts a dent.
But it does get rid of a building. It does get rid of maintenance. It does get rid of like some redundancies in terms of like all that stuff. And if they have a strong, I don't know, again, I'm just guessing, I don't know for sure. I can see them putting like one of their editors or several of their editors from their publishing line, their book publishing line, like into their DC publishing line. Like, hey, you guys know how to make a profit through this. Maybe we can transition this somehow.
I hope that's the case. We've talked about this, just to wrap up, we're already over time, but it seems like we're already hearing about future plans that will be well past this rumor date.
And that's another thing.
What
like
I don't
Batman
follow.
Catwoman is a 12-parter, I believe, is how they.
We've also got the sequel to Three Jokers that they've already announced, and that I've got to imagine that would be coming out after this alleged shutdown.
Well, that's only a one shot, so I wouldn't see that.
You think that's already in the can?
I think like maybe March or April is when.
I do worry because I know typically with how things get released, like Batman, Catwoman, being Tom King, I don't know. But typically most of that is the script's probably already finished by now for all 12 issues. They're maybe waiting on some of the art for like the last couple. But a lot of it, just how the publishing goes, is they have so much stuff already finished that gets put out way later than you would think would happen, but especially with COVID and everything going on.
Please
getting
maybe double their
distributed later.
schedule.
So I think that like stuff like that, while that might be a glimmer of hope, not to like dissuade hope, because I think it's important right now with DC, but I think a lot of those things that they have, there aren't any new, like brand new things that are being announced out of nowhere that are coming out that are long in the future. There's just things that we've already known about that are coming out, which, like I said, are more than likely already finished. And so they're just putting out kind of the excess of what they have.
All right. Well, I feel like we could turn the page on this for now, but I think as things. I'm surprised you're not more upset. These are your favorites we're talking about.
He's dead on the inside.
It's true. John's killed me.
You were already dead on the inside when we started.
Anymore.
That's what working here does, isn't it? You just
I do my
slowly kill
best.
them.
I do my best.
Run, Jake. There's still time for you.
No, there's not.
I break them.
Yes,
I
he
must
does.
break them.
All right, next up. And for anyone who's been following our weekly pick lists, I'm sure you can have some. You're going to have some insight and some guesses. But I want to chat about some of our favorite indie books. There's lots of DC and Marvel, and even, if DC does go away, we're going to need to look for reads elsewhere, right, to fill our pool boxes. So let's take a few minutes and talk about our favorite indie reads, especially those that maybe our viewers aren't reading and should.
You go first.
Well, there's a lot of things that people should be reading that they're not for some reason. I know people see indie and they get, they're like, oh, that's the other part of the shelf that I don't go to. I look at the Marvel and the DC, and that's the stuff.
Where's their $1 billion movie?
Above or below, and although I think people are realizing now, especially with Netflix and HBO and a lot of other properties, that things are being made. My family's a big, victim of this, or they're like, oh, that's a really cool thing, and I'm like, yeah, do you know that was a comic? And they're like, what? I didn't know that was a. And I'm like, yeah, and they're like, well, who made it, Marvel or DC? And I'm like, no. And so it ends up being, with the Umbrella Academy or the Charlize Theron movie, Old Guard on Netflix, also an independent thing. A lot of things, different things. Some that have been out for a long time, like Invincible is getting a TV show.
Amazon Prime.
Yep.
Animated.
A lot of things. So excited about that. So it is still, there's a lot of great storytelling, great creators, great minds.
All right, so get to the good stuff, man. What should people be reading?
I think people should be reading. There's a book called Stillwater by Chip Zdarsky. He's writing Daredevil right now, which is really, really big, especially issue 25, blowing up right now. Really cool run. He's a really talented artist turned writer. It's a really cool concept of a town where people can never die. Nobody knows about it.
Spoiler alert.
Guy accidentally stumbled his way. They tell you that in the promo for the first one. I don't feel like it's too much of a spoiler. But that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to that town and the secrecy, and that when you get in, you don't ever come out, and what that means to him. That's a really good mystery thriller type thing with some really good storylines. Seven Secrets is a really fun book. It is action-packed. It's got a young person of color at the center who's a really interesting character. Secret Order, that is going all kinds of upside down, getting turned around by somebody who's determined to completely break the order all apart right on his first day of becoming a part of the Secret Order. There's family drama, there's regular drama, there's explosions, there's spies, there's action, there's all kinds of fun stuff. Really bright colors, really good animation there.
It is a good contrast to a lot of the darker books out there right now.
Absolutely. It's definitely something to brighten up your day. I also am a fan to bring you back down to the dark. Nailbiter Returns is one of my favorite series.
It's a bright and happy story, right?
Yes, very happy, very bright, about a bunch of serial killers all born from the same town. And this series continues off the original series, which was about 32 issues. We have all the collections, graphic novels. I would highly recommend reading them anyway, but definitely reading them first, because this one carries off exactly where the other story left off. Normally you get like a 5-year gap or a here's what you missed type of thing. This one just turns the page and takes place right after the fact.
Normally you don't think of serial killers as being likable, but the
main character, yes, Edward Warren, aka the Nailbiter, he grows on you after a while, and he's very much the heart and soul of the series, and always a kind of a humorous, but definitely still a serial killer and still crazy that can catch you by surprise every now and then.
Kind of reevaluating my life choices sitting here with two people who are emphasizing with serial killers.
In comics.
So before I go into mine, I want to make it like the cool thing about independent books is, unlike Marvel or DC, they're not beholden to these characters that they need to keep the same for movie purposes or television purposes. There's a lot more transition to the characters. There's a lot more like movement.
You can genuinely have a new concept and idea and make it your own.
And I love Marvel and DC. I love DC. Like, that's my company, much like yours. But like, there's
Batman is still Batman. His parents got shot in the alley. He's an orphan. He has Robin. Like, there are some things that you're not allowed to mess with.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think that's why like a lot of people are gravitating. I'm sure you've seen it here in the last like year or two. We definitely seen a big influx in our independent books.
I'm finding it easier to like get my wife into reading the independent stuff because it doesn't have that same superhero stigma that some people have with jumping in the comics.
I mean, so I will say that like some of the superhero stuff is definitely
it's great.
deepening.
It's out there, but there's a much wider variety, right? Like I can't imagine Nail Biter at Marvel or DC, for example.
Well, maybe at Vertigo when it used to exist, but
that's not a thing.
Yeah,
but yeah.
That's something like Karen Berger, one of the creators of the Vertigo line. She now works for Dark Horse, curating their Berger books, and she's put together like a great roster of writers and artists. So that's definitely she's doing a great job there. If you guys haven't like checked out any of her stuff, it's some good stuff. But going into the one that I think people should be reading, and unfortunately we're sold out of it, and I hope they do a second printing of it here soon, is Recount. Like, I'm a huge political person. I love politics. In that one, the president is assassinated by a Secret Service agent. That Secret Service agent is assassinated by another Secret Service agent. That one is interrogated, and it leads to this downward spiral where this terrorist cell promises to execute everybody that was responsible for putting this guy.
And this is where it gets disturbing
into power,
because we're not talking just the politicians and the senators.
Yeah,
they go so far as to say every person who voted for this guy, we know who you are.
And they stated, like, and if you think we can't track you down, you're wrong. You volunteered this information to us every time you post it on Facebook, every time you post it on Twitter, every time you put a sticker on your car. You made this public to us, like, and it goes from there. I know you have some reservations about like.
I just feel like if we're not careful, this gets to you go one side or the other on the political spectrum.
I hope it stays down the middle.
It's like cheap fan fiction for the other side, right? You're right. This could be a great cautionary tale if they do this right. I have no reason to think they won't.
The first issue, I felt like they stayed pretty.
They did. They were like they never mentioned parties. They never really even mentioned political platforms or anything.
And like I said, I hope they do a second printing of it because I will order a ton of copies.
They need to. This is a book that people should be checking out. So. It's timely, and in a weird way, it's like I enjoyed reading Why the Last Man during the pandemic with all the craziness that's going on. It's definitely a timely read and a good cautionary tale.
Yeah, it was a really good book.
You're gonna have at least one more. And Chandler's got like 5.
He had 3. I unfortunately don't have anything prepared, so I can't think off the top.
Speaking of conspiracy theories, Department of Truth's a fun new book that we've been reading.
Department of Truth. The first issue of that was really, really good. I'm not gonna lie, I've not had a chance to read second or third issues yet.
It's continued on a pretty good clip of something where, again, I was worried when I read it that I thought it was going to be overly political. I don't enjoy it as much, but they've definitely sticking to the few characters we've met in this underbelly association that is part of the government but not part of the government, who tracks down conspiracy theories and makes sure that they don't come to fruition.
Well, I think
they kind of flipped it. Did you read the latest issue?
I have read all but 4. I've read the first 3.
Okay, the latest issue, like we go through those first 3 and they're on a very specific type of case, and then it kind of offers a different perspective of this new one. It was a really good issue. It made me think about what they're doing and the nature of reality and like what this means more than just we're trying to keep the crazy stuff from happening. But like without going too far into it, but like what if belief like brought someone back or undid something, that would help you, like brought a loved one back or something, for example. So they're going in some interesting directions with this book. It's not just all the crazy.
Is Elvis back?
No, Elvis is not back. Not yet. I mean, we can hope. Any other picks? I've let this one run long because we love indie books and people should be reading more indie books. I will throw out Villainous, but that's a limited run. Jake and I have really been enjoying that one. I call that one a more wholesome take on the boys, where the superheroes in the world aren't necessarily all they're cracked up to be. The art's bright, colorful, a lot of what I like about Seven Secrets.
Much more wholesome.
Yeah, much more wholesome. Jake and I are reading it together. We Live, I'm enjoying quite a bit. It's kind of another post-apocalyptic thing, involves kids. So if you haven't figured out the theme, Jake and I are reading a lot.
Dead Day is a great.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed that it was limited, but it was a great read. I wish that had been more of an ongoing. Yeah, I'm hoping to come back because I didn't know it was limited going into it, and I was mad at the end of it. I was like, that's it. I wanted so much more because it is a good read. I've enjoyed every one. My only anger point is like, I want more. This can't be it. This is a good book. Damn, Chandler. You should have never told me to read this book. It's only five issues.
You want to go back and read some older stuff? Skyward, good 15-issue.
My wife is loving that. She finished that. My daughter's now reading it. Jake has read the first bit. That's a great. In fact, most of the stuff we're reading at home and super psyched about, other than the Donny Cates stuff, has been independent. And
if you don't want to venture too far away from the superhero category, books like Invincible and Black Hammer are really good stories that are Black Hammer, especially if you like more of like the Golden Age and stuff like that. The whole series is kind of like one big love letter and homage to both Marvel and DC characters. You can definitely tell like where they're trying to say, who they're actually talking about, but with their own characters, with their own creative impulses. And Invincible, a modern take on it. Invincible is more of kind of Spider-Man meets Superman in more ways than one that I won't get into in the beginning, but it definitely has a really good twist right about the second graphic novel. And if you want something and you want to be dedicated to it, there's about 26 graphic novels.
Be a good time to get into it. The stuff's always better to read. Read it before the Amazon show hits.
Yes, and there are plenty. We have every copy here of all the different volumes, and it is definitely well worth the read if you have the time. It's one of my favorite stories.
All right, we'll turn the page on this episode's recommendations, but I have a feeling we're going to revisit indie books, especially if our friends at DC are putting out the way that we'd like them to. I have to twist it. That's the reaction I'm looking for. So, hot button topic, surprise topic. And John and I have jumped in on Facebook on it a little bit for this one. For those that don't know, Daredevil 25 came out. And Daredevil, we love it, right?
I do love it.
I mean, we've been reading it.
I loved it before 25 came out.
That's what I'm saying. We've been reading it.
The first one.
Chip it was one of the first books that I put on my subscription list when we got started, Jake and I, several months back, and really dove in.
It's been a pleasant surprise from an artist that I really liked that definitely had input into a book always, but gone from completely turned to writer, which he still does art every now and then, but he's really shown his chops in a lot of different books, but Daredevil especially, I think, is when people really
great book though, right? But a lot of people haven't been on this book for some reason. So what happens? Hot issue comes out. It's not in the previews, right? There's no solicitations for what's going to happen.
Surprise.
So like a day or two before, we start hearing that something big's going to happen in 25.
Because some stores get their stuff like 2 or 3 days before.
So stuff starts to leak out. It starts to hit the speculation apps. And then suddenly we went from, I don't know, a very small number of us. We were probably a good percentage, just the people that work here and had it on our pool lists. And then it blows up and everyone wants to copy. So that brings in the flippers, the speculators. So John and I were engaged in, it's a fun debate, at least for me. I don't have as much skin in the game just as a customer, but it kind of brings up our last topic. Are flippers good or bad for the hobby? What are your personal opinions?
So I would actually draw a distinction between flippers and speculators. For me, flippers are people that just want to buy it immediately off of the shelf and turn it that day for a profit. I think speculators are a little bit different in that most of them play the long game, which is
you don't think a lot of them are coming in trying to swoop up the books off the shelf and going right to eBay?
So to me, going to what the term actually means, speculate is your putting.
Now, I get what it's supposed to mean, but in like the modern context,
and that's why I'm saying the two are different to me. Okay. Flippers are the ones that'll buy it right off the shelf and like put it out on eBay because they want to make that quick, like $10, $15, maybe $100, whatever the differential is on that. Speculators, to me, are people who generally play the long game. Like there's a first appearance of a character and they want to buy 5 copies, but they don't plan on flipping it that day. Maybe they'll flip one of them to recoup what they've put into those 5 issues, but then they'll save those other 4 and hope that they go up in price.
Okay, so for the context of that, let's zero in on this flipper phenomenon, right? Because I think that's the part that is the hot button issue. Because even by its very nature, right, you're a speculator.
Yeah.
You have to order months ahead of time.
Every store is a speculator because, yes, they need to figure out where their money is and which one's going to make them money.
Yes.
We're not here as a charity. We're not here as a...
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know comics are a different kind of industry. You have to order months ahead of time.
We have to order 2 months ahead of time, and we can adjust our orders 3 weeks before the books
and you're doing so on like a tiny blurb in the previews magazine or on the website typically. So you're trying to put all the pieces together and figure out. You're looking at your subscriber numbers.
But I have told people, I've told you, I've told my subscribers, I know I've told you as well. If you know how to read previews, you can look for key things in there that will give you an indication whether something big is going to happen. Now,
I think this one flew pretty.
I was going to say, like, this one flew under the radar, but there were other things on this one that made me order more than what I normally would. I'm not going to say what that is. No offense to anybody, but like, I have my own ways.
No, you got to come in and hang out at the shop and become a friend of the shop to get the inside scoop.
Well, I have my own ways on reading the previews in terms of how I think it's solicited and marketed and things like that in terms of what I think they're trying to tell retailers to do. And I think that they do try and give like hints without saying it outright. But I don't want to go too deep into that.
But in
because
the
we want to talk
context
about flippers
of the
and
flippers,
speculators.
right? How do you feel about the folks that come in? They saw Daredevil 25 heated up.
Yes.
And you just know immediately it hit my app, and I subscribe to them too. I like, first of all, I like to know what's popular. So I see the alert come in, and I just know that people are hitting the local comic shops, and if allowed, they're scooping them up.
So here's my thing about all this. I have no problem with speculators. I think that speculation is actually good for the industry as long as it doesn't exceed a certain percentage of the market. I don't know what that percentage is. The number that I always bandy about is 4-1, 80% readers, 20% speculators, or flippers, whatever you want to call them, like depending on how you want to define the terms. And I think that's a healthy market. If you start exceeding 20%, if you have 2 flippers for every 3 readers, that's not a good percentage. That's a terrible percentage. Because those 2 flippers are going to buy 20 copies, and they only have 3 other people to sell it to. It's just not good percentages in terms of.
And at what point do you have so many flippers or speculators that you no longer can pull in the new readers, right?
Exactly. Because you want those storylines to be available to the readers. Now, at that point, if it's about getting it to the readers, the flippers are actually beneficial to the market in terms of them actually getting them out to...
You think so, though? I mean, like let's take Jake, for example, right? Like, he's a kid and he wants to get in the comics. He's not going on eBay and picking up a $25 book.
What I'm saying is the books are still currency at that point. They're still in the currency. They're not in a vault. They're
still out in the world. They're obtainable.
Exactly.
But maybe out of the reach of the average reader at this point.
Exactly. Well, and I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm saying that I try to take a more of an explanatory terms in terms of how I view the things and how it goes. I know Chandler probably has a little bit less.
Yeah, you're a customer like I am and a reader. How do you feel about it? How do you feel about with the thought that someone can come in, you're working, you're teaching, right? You're teaching late. You can't be here. You're not lined up Wednesday morning. Right is open. For whatever reason, you forgot to put something on your pull list, but you really want to read this book. How does it make you feel if you show up and someone has come in and just wiped the shelves?
Well, first, I would never forget to put something on my pull list. But second, I think it is a double-edged sword, kind of like John's trying to say. On the one side, I think it's good for the industry and for everything. You know, if something heats up that, you know, for example, like you said, Daredevil, who not a lot of people were reading, who should have been, like...
And now people are aware of it.
Yeah, so that's cool.
You think that'll actually translate to readers, though? Or do you think this is just one more hot title?
I think it could. I think it depends. I think that's the gamble with it. But I think it does bring a little bit of a spotlight onto something, whether it's Daredevil or another character next week.
So that goes back to what I was saying about the 4-1 thing, though. So the way that the flippers and the speculators can help that, though, is if they actually read the product as well. Maybe keep one of those copies. And some of them do. Like, I'm not saying that they don't. But, like, to become a reader in addition to a speculator or in addition to being a flipper. Like, know the product and love the product. Don't treat it just as a commodity or something to
Right. And that being said, on the other side of the story, like, it does suck if you look and you say, oh, cool, like Daredevil, is everybody's like freaking out about this comic. Like, I like that character. I watched the TV show. Like, maybe I want to start reading it. Like, I'll come in, like, I'll get that book or whatever. And you come in and it's all sold out because people have bought all of it. Like, that does suck. So there is a side to that. It depends. I think there's a medium ground.
And that's what you don't want to create. You don't want to create an artificially low supply, even though the supply is actually high. What I mean by that, again, is you're taking books off the market and hiding them in a vault or whatever. And
listing them on eBay.
And I know that some of the thread that you're talking about blasted some stores for putting stuff up on eBay the week that it came out, and the book for putting it up on eBay the day it came out. And again, they took the risk on the book. And I know, like, I'm a store and I have a different opinion than some people on this. But, like, again, I read previews. I saw the different things, like indicators to me that indicated that they wanted people to order a little bit higher on that book. And it also didn't hurt for me that the nullified cover was really cool. So, like, I didn't feel bad about going high on that variant, that open order variant, and going from there. But going back to speculators and flippers and, like, basic feelings about that, I also think that, if you love the market, you love the industry, you love the media, you know what you're looking for. I will say that I know that one thing that some people really dislike is when they see people, like, going through their app and
we see it here all the time,
and they don't even care about, like, what the book is. It could say Tide pods on there, and that's worth $50, and
as long as it's on that hot list for the week.
Whatever it can make the money for that week.
Yeah.
Type of deal.
Like, they have no care about, like, the product or the story or the character. And one of the things that we do push here, and I know it does push some speculators and flippers out of the store, and it's somewhat my intention, but it's also to try and even the playing field a little bit, is I make it where it's limit one per customer no matter what the book is, no matter whether it's hot, whether it's cold, whatever it is. Unless you have it on. Now, if you ask me at FOC, like, hey, I want 3 copies of that, I'll order the extra.
If it's on your pool list, it's on your pool list.
Yeah, I'll order the extra 3 copies for you. Because then I can adjust like, if I want 10 copies up on the wall, I know they'll go, oh, okay, well, now I need to add the 3 extra to keep my 10 copies up on the wall for people who walk in. And like I said, some people don't like that. Some people do like it. I've been yelled at about it. I've been congratulated for it. Everybody has their opinion on it. I don't think there's a wrong answer about it. But I do think that once you exceed a certain percentage of speculators and flippers, it's not good for the market.
No, we could see the 1990s all over again, right?
Yes. And people back then were buying 20, 30, 40.
People thought they were going to buy all these copies, these Image books, and even Superman's Dead, and put their kids through college on these things.
Yes.
And that people are very sadly disappointed now.
Yes. I went to look at a collection. The guy had probably like 50 Superman number 75s, and they all had $75 price tags on them. And he thought I was ripping him off when I made the offer that I did. I did not leave with those books. He said that he might as well give them to a children's hospital, and I said, by all means, I'm not going to tell you not to give them to a children's hospital. So.
What is that? Yeah, please do. That would be great. Let's get some sick kids reading comics. That's so weird.
I mean, I felt bad for him because he thought he had a lot of dollars in his box.
Gold bricks in his
I think everyone did back then, right? But the print numbers were crazy. People were running it up. The speculation was crazy. The Image guys were rock stars.
And I will say that's why I know you think that the industry is kind of like in the danger zone right now. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Just looking at the print run numbers.
That's the only thing that gives me hope because we're not talking about the same type of print.
Yeah,
numbers.
I think the top book is like 120,000, 140,000. There might be like special things going on, like the King in Black that might be a little bit over that. But like for the average book, I think Batman is about 100,000, 120,000, something like that. I'd have to look at it again, but I don't think that's a danger number.
No. What is your word on the flip? Would you ever buy a book, Chandler, just because it was hot and you thought you could flip it? I mean, I consider us readers.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy the medium, so I like reading the book. So to me, even if it is worth something, like I have a couple books like in my collection that I've just had over the years that I got. I didn't know that it was going to be. Some of them were hot later. Some of them were hot right before, but they were on my pull list. And I have tossed around the idea of maybe some of them are worth nothing like stupid expensive, but worth a fair amount of money. I've thought about it, but at the end of the day, like, I like that book and I like having it and I enjoyed the story and I want to keep it because it's a part of my collection. So I probably wouldn't buy a book with that intention. I also usually, if I buy something, I have to be interested in it somewhat that I want to read.
So this brings up another question, though. Like, so as a collector, I think one of the books I know you have is Teen Titans number 12. We won't talk about it being worth like $1 billion, but we don't want your wife to see that.
She's not going to watch any YouTube.
Yeah, she's not going to watch this at all.
And speculators and flippers help drive that price at least a little bit. But doesn't it make you feel good that at least one of your books is worth like that kind of money?
Yeah. Cool.
But do you feel good because it's worth that type of money, or because you picked it up and you were like the cool kid before, the fan before it got cool, and it's just something that you loved heated up? You see the difference?
A little column A, a little column B. I think it's cool that people are whether I think it's factually true or not, the market is dictating that this is what it's worth, and like John said, it is in part a fair amount based on people who are speculating or flipping the book, who keep driving it and increasing it. Now, will it stay forever? Will it fall? I don't know. That's the risk you run with anything like that on that type of market. But it is cool that
it was an under-ordered book because people didn't know that. They thought that he was going to appear in Dark Knight's Metal, not in Teen Titans 12. Yeah. And Snyder disagrees with with the markets.
Everyone has told him it doesn't matter what he thinks.
So, like I said, I mean, speculators, flippers, and the market decided that book was the one to have. And like I said, I think it does. To liken it to Magic cards, like when Magic started like doing different rarities in addition to rare, like harder to find ones, and it destroyed the value of the rare cards, Magic players became very frustrated and upset that their cards were not worth what they used to be worth. There was an intrinsic value to the card. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying comics are an exact like allegory to it or analogy to it, but it people do like when they buy something and it has value to it. I'll be honest, like there are people that are not like that also. Like I do Lego, and like I know that some of my sets are worth money, but I don't look them up like for that or anything like that. Like it doesn't like. I put together the sets. I don't like keep them in the boxes. I don't.
And along those lines, I think I always come back to buy what you want to read, because even if that market crashes out, you at least are stuck with something that brought you joy at some point, or you can share it with someone.
And that's the thing that people have to realize: the $4 you're spending is for the story, not for its potential value. Like,
well, that's what it should be. At least.
Yeah.
Right. Let's drill down a little further. And in that same Facebook discussion...
Actually, we have to finish up very quick.
Yes.
My wife is going to kill me.
Let's do 2 more minutes on this.
Because I know we're already past 6:15.
You as a comic book retailer, and this has come up a lot on this, and I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you have an obligation on opening day to sell every book at cover price? Because that... When we go through the Facebook group, and I waded into this, I think you probably thought I was silly for jumping in. And I know we agree on most of this, but I want to hear your take, and then I'm interested to hear your take on it as a customer. But there's very much, and it goes hand in hand with the flipper category, right? Because that particular subset get very upset if a book is blown out, and then someone that
and they can't make money on it.
If they can't make money on it, and let's say you took a gamble, you took care of all your pool lists.
So I will tell you that I have a couple different beliefs on this. Now, it's not I'll tell you the thing that I do, and I'll tell you the thing that I would find acceptable. The other two things I would find acceptable as a store. Number one, do I have an obligation to sell them at cover price? I have an obligation to sell those Daredevil 25s to 13 people, and those 13 people are the 13 people who put it on their pull list. After that, like whatever I want to do with those other 12 copies is up to me. If I want to light them on fire, it's like and go look at this flippers. I don't give a fuck about. Or I don't care about this.
There goes our rating.
I don't care about this book.
Wouldn't have picked him to be the first to swear.
I would have.
Yeah, should have known better.
Sorry, that I don't care about this book in terms of like being what happened in it. Like I'll light them on fire. I don't care. I wouldn't do that because I like literature. I wouldn't burn a book. But what I'm saying is it's mine to do with as I see fit. I know stores do this also. So it was selling for $25 out of the gate. I know that there are some stores that will market at $15. So they leave $10 on the table for flippers, and they will take the extra $10 or $11 for themselves. And it's kind of a split. I think that's a perfectly way to approach it also. I mean, again, it's their book to do with as they wish. I know some speculators don't even like that. I think that's kind of like, if you want to talk about, I don't know, if I were a speculator, I would see that as like meeting me halfway at least. Yeah. Like as a store owner, like I said, it's my book to do with whatever I want. And there's other stores that put it at a cover price. Again, their prerogative. One of my friends owns a store. He puts everything out at cover price. His prerogative, whatever he wants to do with it. If that helps him drive sales to his store, by all means, do that. Like I have no problem with how any store approaches it. I do have a problem when speculators or flippers post like, well, we should burn that store down. And that was one of the comments in that thread. And I was like, I know that they're speaking metaphorically, but like I shake my head at it and I'm like, you're not entitled to this book. Like
that was my opinion that I kept coming away with. Like it was almost like they're saying, how dare you cut me out of the process and go right to trying to make a profit for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I think it's silly the way that they were getting kind of heated about it.
It comes up though I think it particularly came up on this book because it flew so far under the radar.
This is the second book in the last month. The first one was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Last Ronin.
True, but I feel like at least people knew about that one. Like I feel like this one flew under the radar a little bit for even a lot of the guys who were
people in the industry knew about it, but then they did that big push outside of the industry, which brought people. Which, by the way, the second printing comes out next week. So
yeah, if you want to read the story, it's a good chance to jump in. You're quiet. I'll give you the last word. We got to wrap up. Get everyone home to their wives.
I think that, like John said, and it's not just because like I subscribe to the store. Whenever I worked, at a grocery store, like they are the ones that are buying the product. They're the ones that are putting it on their shelves. If they want to mark, a box of cereal for $10 or whatever, if it's their product that they're getting that they're shipping out, they have the right to do with that what they will. Now, if they did that, would a lot of people buy the cereal? Probably not. But that's the risk you take. Like you said, we're not taking anybody's comics out of their bins, remarking them and saying, no, it's going for this, so you have to pay this. If you have 2 months at least that it's solicited out for, you have
3 weeks.
3 weeks beforehand that if you change your mind or you get an idea, you can on our managedcomics.com, you can do that. You
have it from your house.
You don't even have to come to the store or call. You can take care of it on your own. You can add it to your pull list as long as it is before those 3 weeks that we are allowed to order extra. Totally up to you, and you will get it at cover price.
I will say one of the things that they said on the thread, and it cracked me up, that like, what every store just bought it and marketed at whatever price. I'm like, they do. That's capitalism.
Yes. Stores are, yes. You buy something and you mark it at a price.
I don't think it's easy for people to forget, though. You mentioned the retailers, right? But a lot of those stores, if stuff sits on the shelves or expires, or I have another retail, a lot of that product can go back for credit if we don't sell it. This is one of the few industries that once you've bought it, you've got to order way ahead of time, and once you've got it, you're stuck with it. Yeah. So for every one of these hot books, you've got 100 others that sit, and I know you have an awesome back issue collection, so you order, that's what you've built this particular location around, so you're planning for that, but a lot of other retailers are not. So suddenly they're sitting on whatever they can't sell. If you don't sell it in that first month, I mean, it just kind of gets archived away, and then maybe it gets hot, maybe a collector walks in and needs that issue, but it's not like that in other businesses.
Yeah, like bookstores can even send back comics. We can't send back our comics.
No, I mean, to be clear, there are, like, I've read recently, like, some people, like, there was an indie publisher, I can't remember which one, was trying to get people to order more, and it was a big deal, and they were letting you return, like, letting shops return. That's a big deal in this industry when someone does that. It doesn't happen often.
Now, I will also say that I have a problem with like companies like Big Idea that are trying to build their whole market around speculators. I don't know if you know about that company.
No, I haven't, but
that company is just trying to build purely off of speculating and flipping, and I think it's a terrible idea. And I know some people are behind it. That's cool. You put your money wherever you want to put it. Like I do not see that as a good paradigm for the market at all. I think it is a terrible, terrible market.
All right, well, I think we will close out and turn the page on this one. Any last words before we close up? We'll try to do this weekly. We'll pick and discuss a few topics together. If anyone has ideas for topics, hit us up on the Brainstorm page, send it in. We'll throw it in the mix. And I'll try to keep things interesting and throw at least one surprise topic out every week for you guys. Last words?
I hate Ethan Van Sciver.
Donnie Cates is the worst writer of all time.
Jake is gonna flip out, and I'm not gonna be able to control him.
I'm joking. I'm just trying to irritate our cameraman.
I'm not joking.
And when everyone sees the camera go sideways and tables start getting flipped, they'll know what happened. All right, so thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you got some enjoyment out of that. This is the type of stuff that we wanted to capture, the conversations that we have around the shop. Pretty much on a weekly basis, when we're putting up new books or just kind of hanging out. At least us. I mean, you actually work here. But this is the type of stuff that some of us come here for. We wanted to share that with the folks at home. And we'll try to agitate and get these guys a little more heated next week. So, like and subscribe. Find us on Facebook. Let us know what you think. And we'll talk to you guys soon.